Gut-directed hypnotherapy is a form of treatment that can help change the neurological communication between your gut or the enteric nervous system and your brain and spinal cord or your central nervous system. This kind of treatment can help affect something called visceral hypersensitivity. It can help affect motility or the movement of material through the digestive system. It can help with symptom reduction, and for people with something called inflammatory bowel disease or IBD, it can even help reduce the recovery time after a flare, and it can increase the amount of time in between flares in conjunction with other treatments. One of the important pieces that's different about gut-directed hypnotherapy when compared to mindfulness is that mindfulness is really an in-the-moment awareness and an acceptance and presence with what's going on right now. And hypnotherapy is more of a present and future-focused idea of possibility. The cadence is similar, but the wording is going to be very different, and I'll talk more about that later. One of the big things that it can help with quickly is decreasing something called catastrophic thinking and symptom hypervigilance or hyperfocusing on symptoms. Over several weeks of treatment, it can improve on the visceral hypersensitivity symptoms and positive changes in motility. Sometimes people experience motility disruption earlier on, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, although it may be unpleasant. This does reflect that your gut is responding to it, although if this doesn't happen for you, that's okay. It's usually too soon to tell anyway. Another thing is that you'll hear different dosages by different providers or different programs. I personally have had more success with people doing more frequent but short hypnotherapy sessions, meaning 15 to 20 minutes a day rather than an hour a week. If you have questions or concerns about dosage, bring those up with your provider, and they should be able to have a collaborative conversation with you about it. What I tend to do with my patients is focus on a minimum dosage of 5 to 7 days per week for 6 weeks up to 12 weeks. This does require some level of consistency because you're teaching your gut and your brain a new language. You wouldn't study sign language once or twice a week and complain that you're not actually learning it. This is the same kind of thing. You're really working on changing the way that these neuronally are communicating. Another piece is that people tend to use it and integrate it differently in their day to day after their minimum dose. I have some patients where they continue to use it after they've gotten the benefits from it, but they notice that it really helps them relax or calm down or helps them fall asleep. And after that dosage, after that prescription of whatever your provider is asking you to do, you can use it however you want. Sometimes people revisit it after months of not using it because they kind of need like a booster hypnosis for a period of time. There's a lot of different ways. One of the things to know about hypnosis is the structure of it. So there's the induction, the suggestions and imagery, and then the emergence at the end. During the induction, there is a focus on relaxation. This is one of the pieces, again, that's very different than mindfulness. So the person is going to be talking about relaxing your body, releasing things. It isn't so much about finding what's present and being with it. It's more about actively relaxing yourself. Oftentimes, different providers will give different kinds of inductions, and sometimes if you're using an app, which I'll talk more about later, there will be different inductions over time. And generally, people develop preferences. And really, what we're going for is what helps you get into a physically and mentally relaxed state. The second part is the imagery. And the suggestions and imagery, this is the place where the provider will plant seeds of possibility. Oftentimes, this is where people talk about they have a little peanut gallery going on, and maybe your brain pops in with, yeah, but that's not going to work, or that's so far from what I'm even doing right now. I can't believe that that would happen. And one of the things is that our imaginations are often very limited by our reality. And I try to talk to people about this is an imagination exercise. So when your brain pops in with all of its different opinions, the thing to say back to it is, man, I am just pretending. That's what I'm doing. This is what that is. Hypnosis functions to expand on this piece of possibility in a way that actually correlates to changes in the underlying neurology. And the suggestions and the imagery is how this is done. One of the pieces to keep in mind if you have a provider who's actually creating the hypnoses for you is that it can be helpful to have the suggestions and imagery have a metaphor and the concrete connection to changes in your gut versus only having the metaphor or only having the concrete changes. Oftentimes, having them both can help a lot. Sometimes there's too big of a gap between what's being prompted as the suggestions and the imagery and what your reality is. And if you're finding yourself having a really hard time stepping into that imagination realm and it's too far from what your experience is, then if you have a provider, you can let them know and they can adjust the script for you. Or if you're listening to a recording, then it may be that you need to come back to it at a later time, or maybe that you need to find a recording that is more suitable for where you're at and what your goals are. The last piece is the emergence. During the emergence, you'll hear general statements about your gut functioning and shifts in self talk and changes in the stories that we tell ourselves. And then the person will count you out to re embody you. And this might sound like at 1, you feel your hands and feet. At 2, you feel your inhale and exhale in your chest. Da, 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 da. At 5, you open your eyes. I'm going much faster than how it usually is, but you'll hear something like that. I want to give you an idea. One of the things to know about this is that some population of people totally black out that middle part. They remember the induction, they remember the emergence, and they do not remember the imagery or suggestions. That's okay if that happens. If that doesn't happen for you, that's also okay. And some of the research that's been done around gut-directed hypnosis, it's shown us that regardless of how hypnotizable a person is, they still get the benefits of the gut-directed hypnotherapy. Two resources that are out there are apps. One is called Nerva, one is called Regulora. Regulora requires a prescription from a provider, and Nerva is available to the public under a subscription that you pay for. Both of them are geared towards IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, but I have had patients with other completely unrelated diagnoses benefit from their programs, and I've even had other clinicians have patients who have inflammatory bowel disease or IBD even get improvement with their symptoms using one or the other of these apps. There's a link in the description for more information on gut-directed hypnotherapy, as well as some specifics about the Nerva app. I hope this helps clarify any questions that you may have about gut-directed hypnotherapy and figuring out if it's a suitable intervention for you.